Welcome! You're listening to Making Relationships Work. We're a company focused on women and their marriage. We lead and teach women just like you how to grow into and access, whenever you need to, your wise woman's self. The part of you who is deeply connected to your purpose, your innate wisdom, and your husband and family. We teach women in marriages how to rebuild trust and connection, to work through conflicts, no matter how deep, no matter how painful, and to lead your marriage to a place where the two of you experience marriage mastery. This podcast is about learning the systems and techniques that truly work to reconnect you back into your marriage so that you can experience the freedom that comes with a masterful marriage. Since this podcast is totally free, if you're getting tons of value and you want to support us and make sure that you get more of this good stuff, subscribe below and rate and review our podcast today. Now, on to the show. Hello, Women Making Marriages Work, and hello, Making Relationships Work podcast and YouTube channel. It is really lovely to be here with you tonight. It's coming into the Christmas festivities, holiday period, and it is busy, isn't it? It's December, we're running, well, I am at least, we're running fast. We're going between all the different things that are required of us, and we're thinking about all the different ways that we need to show up or prepare for each of those different scenarios. And I wanted to talk to you tonight about the type of experience my potential clients and actual clients are bringing to me at the moment. And they are these very complex, painful family scenarios. And maybe you can relate to this. So the general themes that I'm seeing at this time of year, no surprise, are how do I interact with my parents or my extended family or my family-in-law, like my husband's family? How do I navigate through what works for me and also try and work with the group and what those group dynamics are? And this is a really common, very pervasive problem for many women. And the problem comes very often from a lack of clarity, potentially, on boundaries, or the lack of a family system noticing and appreciating those boundaries. And that, I think, is what we're going to talk about tonight. So boundaries is a very 2019 thing to talk about, isn't it? And essentially what it is a kind of line in the sand or a rule that you create that is designed to put a ring fence around something that's important to you. That's how I would define what a boundary is. And the boundaries are things that are fenced off, so to keep you safe or to keep your energy levels intact or to provide space or time or resources that you deem necessary. Yeah. And so for some people, that's an arbitrary judgment, or they kind of feel their way through it. And for others, it's a really clear mathematical or linear or sequential order kind of ruling. And that's kind of how it works. And where we come into problems for women at this time of year who are trying to ascertain what their boundaries are and then trying to implement those boundaries is usually other people, which sounds a little simplistic, I know, but it's other people's responses to our decisions that we've put usually some good thought into, that have us pause or have us question ourselves or have us react with feelings of frustration or overwhelm or upset or nervousness or fear or a sense of being unappreciated or disrespected. And that's really what the problem is with boundaries. It's not that we have them. It's that when we place them somewhere, somebody else has a big reaction to them. And those reactions then we don't really know what to do with. And so we use our defender strategies. We get angry, we get defensive, we get overwhelmed, we get resistant, we get avoidant, we get aggressive, we get passive aggressive, because we don't feel heard, we don't feel understood, we don't feel supported, we don't feel important. And essentially that's what we're talking about, isn't it? When we put a boundary in and there's resistance from those around the boundary, or there's pushback, or there's disrespect, or there's aggression, or those kinds of words, when those boundaries go in, we then, as women, typically handle that by going, well, it must be something I did. I got it wrong. They said this, therefore should I have done it? Should I not have done it? And that internal experience is probably the worst part about a boundary for most women. And that tends to be why we let those boundaries go. Now, let's talk for a minute about what happens when you let a boundary go. It doesn't matter what relationship it's in. It could be in a work relationship, a marriage, a family of origin, an extended family, a friendship, a parenting. When you let that boundary go, what tends to happen is that a price is paid. And that price, my love, is very often you, but it's just as likely to be the other person. And that particularly comes because, let's explore that for a second. If I'm going to put a boundary in with my child or with my husband, for example, around I need some quiet time, I don't want to talk about work, or can we pause this, or no more candy or chocolates today. Boundary, right? Rule. And there's resistance to that, and then we give, even though we've got this internal sense that that's not the right thing, then we are quite often doing ourselves a disservice in that we go and do that conversation that we don't really want to, and we'd be better doing tomorrow when we've had a good night's sleep. And then our husband comes and kind of receives that from us, but it's also not our best connection because I'm tired. And so the boundaries are there to protect both people, not just one. And that might be the first thing for us to talk about. When you get a relationship that is boundaryless, it is very unstable, and it's not at a functional, connected, wonderful level, is it? Because it's not built on two people on equal footing. It's built with one person moving into somebody else's space with no repercussions. Or the repercussions are what we call below the line. So it's the denial, the blame, the justification, the misdirected anger and avoidance. And all that does is break down a relationship. And what we're really talking about is just reconstructing a relationship so that both people are safe, so that both people have a good experience. So when we leave this over time, a relationship accumulates negative experiences and interactions, and a negative sense of respect or thoughtfulness towards another person. And the person who constantly gives in experiences not feeling 100% of themselves. And so what happens if you put this in a marriage in particular over time is that you get a marriage that is out of balance, that doesn't have natural respect and consequences or conversations about consequences in it. And therefore it becomes very out of alignment. It becomes very out of balance. And so the women on the calls with me at the moment are talking to me about this kind of out of alignment, out of balance, disrespect kind of experience they're having. And all of these women are the ones who are going back on what is not good for them and giving away what is not good for them, or going beyond something that is not good for them in that moment. And that's why they had that boundary there, but then they are unable to hold it. And that's probably what we need to talk about, because a woman in her sense of connection and power to herself, or that authentic kind of leadership that every woman has, is somebody who knows when that has gone too far. And there is somebody who knows when it's time to stop and then knows how to stop it. But what we're talking about in this particular kind of Facebook Live or podcast or YouTube is that my beautiful women that are asking me for help can't really identify why it's got to where it's got to and don't know how to do it differently. And because they don't know how to identify it, they can't name it, therefore they don't know what to do to go and figure it out. And then also they don't know where to go to get the deep set of skills that you need to be able to advocate for yourself in a way that brings you and the other person in a connection space rather than a break of connection. Because what tends to happen, what we teach in this world is disconnection. Put in the boundary and they'll either come back or they won't, right? Well, sure, but also is that, I mean, that's a very simplistic answer, isn't it? Because when you're talking about your husband, when you're talking about your family, you don't want them to not come back. Nobody wants them to not come back most of the time. There's genuinely, most people wish they had relationships that worked and that they could feel at ease in, at home in a space where they could be who they are and be respected and well loved and well supported and safe in that relationship. And most people leave relationships because of the feeling of being unsafe rather than a feeling of kind of just wanting to not be in that relationship. Does that make sense? So that safety, that sense of respect, that sense of valued contributor, that sense that I'm listening to you and I'm responding to you and I see you and I get you, that all comes from somebody who can set that tone of that relationship and have that be received by the other person. And so really what we're talking about tonight are two things. One is setting the tone clearly and then not folding when that person doesn't receive you well, and still staying where you are, but advocating connectedly for what your outcome needs to be. And the other one is when that lands, that boundary, and you have a reaction that is not congruent with your values, doing what you can and then walking away if you need to. Tonight's conversation is not about the walking away part, but theoretically that's where it goes. Tonight's conversation, though, is more about figuring out what your boundary is, holding that boundary, and allowing yourself to let somebody else have their reaction and still be able to stay connected with them and yourself, and really be unmovable in what's good for you and try and help that what's good for you go through so that it's good for everybody. That's what I think the secret is to boundaries at this time of year, and keeping your energy in a space of warmth where you don't need to go cold, or you don't need to get disconnected, and you don't need to freeze somebody out. You can stay warm and powerful. And really that's what a successful relationship is. That sense of connection, that sense of boundary, that sense of knowing where we fit in, enjoying each other, and knowing when it's time to go, and knowing that it's okay to stay in two separate places. And so these are the things I want to leave you with tonight as we're going into the Christmas season, the holiday season. I want you to know that you need clarity so that you can put in boundary or ring fences that are good for you and that are good, therefore, for other people. And many, many women can hear what I'm saying and it goes in up here, but they don't necessarily know how to do it in the moment. And I think that's really what we're talking about tonight. So if I can help you, I want you to book a call and talk to my team, and we'll get you really clear on the boundaries, where they come from, where they don't come from, perhaps, what you need to do to build them, and what the plan is. Yeah, so we can do that, because I've simplified this into one kind of sentence. But if your boundaries are out of whack, all your relationships will be out of whack, and all of those relationships need to be reorientated so that they're serving themselves. Like the relationships have to be kind of standing on their own 2 feet, with both people in that relationship giving and receiving value. And if you don't have good boundaries set up, you won't have good relationships that are in balance having that experience. And so if you want help with this, my loves, I want you to book a call. You can also watch my masterclass. There's a great set of skills in there that you need for your marriage. But the boundary conversation is a good one to have with me directly and my team. So I'll pop the links in down the bottom. There'll be a link for my masterclass. Definitely check it out if you haven't already. And then a link to book a call with me, which is free, with me or one of my team. Depends whose calendar it lands on. And we'll get you really clear on where you are and what's happening for you, and how this inability to sort out your boundaries or have clarity, and then the clarity on your boundaries, and then know how to gently hold them so that everybody wins, so that all your relationships are in good repair. They're in a good state. I want you to know what that feels like, particularly in the holiday season, but also because we've got a new decade coming up, my love. So let's have ourselves a good decade. Let's have these rich relationships that fill everybody up, that are well boundaried and full of laughter and fun, and we can enjoy them and when we can recover from them, because that, my loves, is the secret to a great relationship. So, my friends, it is lovely to be here with you tonight. I wish you a great night, and I'll talk to you soon. Mwah. Much love to you. Thank you for tuning into today's show. If you're feeling fired up and you're ready to grow and you want to know more about how to do that, here is what I want you to do now. I want you to watch my marriage masterclass. This masterclass will show you how my clients have turned their struggling marriages into thriving marriages, even without their husband's buy-in. How my clients have gone from cycles of poor communication, disconnect and loneliness to being teammates and soulmates with their husbands again, even after they've already tried everything. And the proven system my clients use to start transforming their marriages in minutes, not years, because life is too precious to waste one more minute in an unhappy and unfulfilling marriage. So if this is what you're looking for, I want you to click the link below and take a look at my masterclass.